Good morning. Thank you for joining us today to officially commemorate Seattle's 150th anniversary. Yay! Also known as Seattle's sesquicentennial. My name is Monica Martinez Simmons. I'm the city clerk for the city of Seattle, and I am your MC for this morning. On October 17th, together with city employees gathered at Seattle Municipal Tower, Mayor Durkan kicked off Seattle's sesquicentennial celebration. This took place in concert with the launch of the book, Seattle at 150, which many of you contributed to. Thank you. We have our partners from History Link and our archives team with us today, if I could give them a shout out. This partnership produced an incredible book commemorating Seattle's 150th anniversary, and we can all be proud of that. 1 week ago today, December 2nd, Council President Harrell welcomed civic poet Jordan Amani Keith to the Seattle City Council meeting. Ms. Keith presented a reading of her poem, Let Seattle Be. This day marked Seattle's 150th anniversary. Today, we pause with our leadership, past and present, and I'd like to acknowledge our past mayors, Mayor Norm Rice, Mayor Greg Nichols, and Mayor Tim Burgess. Thank you for being with us today, along with our current and newly elected officials. I believe Councilmember Tammy Morales is here as well. Yay. So again, we pause from the incredible work that takes place within the city day in and day out to officially commemorate this important time in Seattle's history. I am honored to introduce our mayor, Jenny Durkan, who has made history as Seattle's second female mayor, elected nearly 100 years after our first, Bertha Knight Landis. Thank you, Mayor. I'll turn the time over to you.
Monica, thank you for that, and thanks to everyone. I also want to recognize Pete Holmes, who's here. We wouldn't be anywhere without our lawyer. I have to give just another thank you and acknowledgement to our two former mayors, Norm Rice and Greg Nichols, particularly since we're in the Norman B. Rice room. Thank you for being here, and Mayor Burgess, thank you for that. Interesting, I'm only the second woman in the history of Seattle to be elected mayor, and I was, we think, the first elected mayor born in the city of Seattle to be a mayor of Seattle. So 150 years it took. Which just shows that we are a city of newcomers and a city that grows by expanding. I want to thank Monica, not just for her introduction, but for all the work that she and her team have done leading up to this. Their role is really underappreciated in this city. They do so much, and having them behind us on this anniversary is really special. So thank you, Monica. I also want to thank my members of the court who are here today, such an important and vital part of what we're doing in this city. And also to History Link. You do so much for our community, everything that you do. It's really grateful for you to do this, but to also to acknowledge so much of our past, which is important to how we got here today. We should acknowledge that we are here on Duwamish lands, and every time we acknowledge how our city grows, we must realize that all of that growth came at the expense of the first indigenous people. So I think not just acknowledging that, but truly making it part of who we are and what our future holds is important. Every day that we are in this city, we know right now that our priority has got to be to make sure that as Seattle grows in the next 150 years, that we grow as the most equitable and just and welcoming city. That is the root and best of how we've grown before. And that means in this very difficult times, as we've grown, as many people, particularly our communities of color, have been pushed out of this city, and as we continue to dismantle the systemic racism that has imbued so many parts of not just our city, but our country, that we recommit ourselves to those next 150 years to make this city just and equitable, to make sure that we have affordable housing so that people who work in Seattle can live in Seattle, whether they're a minimum wage worker or a nurse or a teacher, that there's really a place for them here. And that, I think, is what has made our city the best of what it is making sure that that is what is reflected in our values, in the texture of our society. So as we look back on our legacy, let us know today we build the legacy for the next 150 years. And as we make those decisions, which sometimes we get down in the small minutia as the city council or the mayor or any of the cabinet officials, we can take a step back and think, how do we make a decision today that we think will endure for the next 150 years, that we think will make this city the place that my children and their children can be proud of? And so I'm very thankful and honored to be mayor of this great city. I don't think there's a better city anywhere in America. We have our challenges, and some of them are great, but the people are greater. So I want to thank you all for being here, and with that, I'll give it back to Monica.
Thank you, First elected to serve Seattle in 2007, although his history serving the city of Seattle goes back much further, I am honored to introduce Seattle City Council President Bruce Harrell, who will present the sesquicentennial proclamation. A side note, this Thursday, we will be honoring Council President Harrell and Council colleagues Sally Bagshaw, Mike O'Brien, and Abel Pacheco at a farewell event in Bertha Knight Landis. It's bittersweet, but we look forward to having all of you join us for what is sure to be a very special event. Thank you, Council President Harrell.
Sesquicentennial. So I got to practice that word.
150 years, yeah.
It's really an honor to be here. All of you have played such a significant role in our history. It's really nice to share a few words with you. I do want to say with our three mayors here that all of them have city council roots. All of them have former council members, staff on council, and of course a King County council member. But I don't know why the mayor, when she said all of us deal with minutia, she looked at me over here. We've all dealt with minutia. December 2nd is the date in 1869 the territorial governor of Washington signed the Articles of Incorporation establishing the city of Seattle. What was his name? Aha! Something I know because they gave me the notes. Alvin Flanders. And of course, I'm going to, I have a hard time staying on script. I do want to say that one thing that excites me about this is we celebrate, I don't want to say the old and the new. I'm trying to stay away from that word old these days. But new council members, new leadership, senior leadership, our history, and our future. And so I think that's what this represents. And so I have sort of 3 bullet points I want to share with you. The first bullet point of this celebration is truly looking at the immense growth and change that we've experienced in 150 years. If you spend any time in Mohi or just the streets of Seattle looking at the archives, reading some old laws and ordinances, you will see how much we've grown. And sometimes it's nice to just take pause and really think about it when it started as a unincorporated area to what it is now. Number 2, it's amazing on how we have changed our perspective on how we treat one another, largely because of the department's heads here, the judges, new council members, mayors, leadership, vision, how we now, and our new mayor, I should say, I would be totally remiss if I did say that, how we look at ourselves and look at our city and how we choose to think about these issues has radically changed. And thirdly, the city employees who've built the roads and installed pipelines and hauled garbage and brought their creativity to solve our pressing problems, really never getting enough credit, certainly getting a lion's share of blame, but the city employees who really made the city work. I'm a second-generation city employee, so I take particularly pride in the efforts that all of you have done as city employees. So, yes. So it's my extreme pleasure to read a few bullet points from our proclamation signed by, I can't say all 9 council members, because we do have one that, of course, is on maternity leave, but we're going to get that blank filled in. So we have it without Councilmember Mosqueda's signature, but we'll fix that. Let me just read a few bullet points, if I may. Whereas city employees have worked for 150 years to provide water, electricity, transportation, and safety for the residents of Seattle and by the way, there's no truth to the rumor that both Tim Burgess, Norm, and I were around in 1869 when all this happened. Whereas the city is devoted in its efforts to advocate for equity equity for all in our city, and whereas the city is working to support climate justice in the context of a climate crisis, and whereas we look ahead to the next 150 years knowing we will work hard to make this city livable, equitable, and just for all, and now therefore we, the City Council and the Mayor of the City of Seattle, commend city employees and elected officials whose work today and for the past 150 years has made the city what it is today. And we hereby proclaim this to be that long word, Sesquicentennial Celebration Day for the City of Seattle. Thank you very much. And now I think we'll hear next from our clerk, who will introduce Tim Wyman. I mean, Secretary of State Wyman. I'm sorry, I got my notes mixed up here. Okay. Okay.
Indeed. Secretary of State Kim Wyman is Washington's 15th Secretary of State. Elected in 2012, Secretary Wyman is only the second female Secretary of State in Washington's history, something we share here. Secretary Wyman's responsibilities include overseeing elections, official filings, Washington State Library, and Washington State Archives. Heading one of the most diverse offices in state government, it is the state office that most resembles the office of the city clerk at the local level. Elections, archives, and more. Secretary Wyman, 45 years ago, I was elected Secretary of State as a girl state delegate. I am especially grateful you have traveled from Olympia to be with us today, along with Ben, and to bring with you the official articles of incorporation. Secretary Wyman.
Thank you. I can't believe you said that. Okay. I've actually had people, though, come up and ask me if we're related. And it's like, our name, never mind. Anyway, thank you, Mayor, for inviting me today. I know some of you are probably wondering why in the world the Secretary of State would be here, but actually, as you heard, our office has the state's archives, which is really the state's history in the truest sense. When we talk about state government, it includes counties and localities. So we have records that go back to the territorial days, and those of you doing math know that Seattle became a city 20 years before we became a state. So I know that's very exciting. And so today what we did is Ben Hele, my archivist who is extraordinary in finding documents, found the original Articles of Incorporation for the City of Seattle, and they're here on display. He is the detail who brought them up from Olympia, and we'll take them back. And we're really, all of the archivists in the room right now can share this with me. It's nerve-wracking, because this is the only copy. This is the real deal, so we don't want anything to happen to it. But it's exciting to see this, and the city, unfortunately, back in 1869, there weren't a lot of cameras, so it's documents like this that really capture the history. But the great thing about it is all of you, if you'd like to, can come and actually see these documents. You can come to the Secretary of State's archives, and you can actually peruse through these, and state territorial documents are about this high, about the size of this table. And it's interesting, if you look at this Articles of Incorporation, they're folded, and you can tell they're just put in an envelope or something and set aside. But it is our state's history. It's an honor to be part of this, and I want to wish the City of Seattle a very happy birthday. Thank you.
Again, thank you, Secretary of State Wyman. Now, before we celebrate with Seattle's 150th birthday cake and the raising of the sesquicentennial flag, I would like to quickly call up our colleagues from Seattle City Light, Shelley, and our sesquicentennial logo designer, John Cannell. This incredible team worked collaboratively together and patiently with me to ensure Seattle's sesquicentennial was an experience the community can share across the city. Seattle has a rich history of strong, diverse neighborhoods that have contributed to the city over its first 150 years. This banner design celebrates the city's sesquicentennial and the neighborhoods that make up our great city. The banners will be placed throughout the city on Seattle City light poles commemorating our 150th anniversary. At least one banner will be placed in each of the city's recognized neighborhoods. City Light and Facilities and Administrative Services are also working to identify locations where we can use light to display our sesquicentennial spirit at night by projecting this logo. Window clings are also being produced so businesses can show their support by placing one on their doors or windows. This is a citywide celebration, and we want the community to have and find ways to join us in honoring our past, even as we look to the future. Approaching 2020, our communications team will work with the team to develop digital mapping of the 150 banner sites. We're very excited to extend this celebration into the community. So let's celebrate. Mayor, Council President, Secretary Wyman, everyone please gather around to cut the 150th year anniversary cake. Once you have the cake, we're going to meet out on the deck behind you and raise the sesquicentennial flag. Thank you all for being here today.
Yes. One, two, three.
Raise that flag! I think it's there because it's below the U.S. That's right. I think it's there. It's smaller than the U.S. Yeah. Yeah. All right.